What's up, everybody, and welcome to the No BS Real Estate Show, a podcast that gives you an inside look on how to make smart financial decisions while adding value to your life. I'm Matty Miller with ERA Real Estate, alongside my co-host and real estate investor extraordinaire, Ryan Robbins. Whether you're a long-time investor or a first-time buyer, join us as we dig through the everyday bullshit of real estate.
Yeah, I cut all that in and out.
And you're there. You went before the cart before the horse, man.
Yeah.
Let's say Ryan Robbins, Matty Miller.
I'm going to start doing the intro. That's it.
Okay.
Taking over.
You stole the thunder. I said we were going to unmute you, then you started talking randomly, and it was off kilter. So we apologize to all our many faithful listeners out there that Ryan jumped the gun a little bit today.
I'm thinking of the video on YouTube and not so much the fact that this goes out audio version only. So
correct. I'm the audio guy. You're the visual guy. We have two different things in here that we both like. So I deal with the podcast side. He deals with the video side.
Yeah, if you guys want to see the edited version where I'm not going to be talking in the beginning, then you go check out the YouTube channel.
Yeah, there you go. So you got a YouTube channel, and that's you search No BS Podcast on YouTube. Pretty simple, huh?
Yeah, No BS Real Estate Podcast.
No BS Real Estate Podcast. Sorry, that's where you fall in. So
there you go.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We are going to talk about probably a hotter topic in the investment world today, and it's basically talking about should you invest in short-term or long-term real estate as far as rentals perspective, i.e. Airbnb, VRBO stuff. There's a lot of people that, hey, well, I want to go buy this beach property out in Jacksonville Beach or out in San Diego, California, or wherever, and I'm going to Airbnb it, and that's how I'm going to make all my money. Great. That's fine. That's a model that can work, but what is different about that model versus, buying a long-term rental? What are the challenges that you have to get over? What are the humps that you have to go through? What are the loopholes sometimes you have to jump when it comes to different kind of strategies as far as what you're going to do. So, obviously, I'm very versed in the long-term rental property, obviously. And then I've actually had people approach me a lot. Do you do Airbnb? Do you do vacation rentals? And I said, no, it's a completely different model, which it is. And it can still work. It's just there's a different set of issues that come with vacation rentals versus long-term rentals. So,
it is,
I'm excited
especially from the
into
property
it.
management side.
Oh, yeah. From my side, it's completely different. So,
and we've got to, I guess, define. We're talking rental time frame, so as far as what a lease would be. So you could hold both properties for 10 years. It's the short-term rental isn't necessarily, I bought it and I'm selling it in a year. It's you're holding it for a long term.
Yeah,
still, it's just you're leasing it out for a day, a week, a month, as opposed to a long-term rental, which would be generally a year.
Yeah, and most commonly when I'm talking about, short-term rentals, I'm talking about an Airbnb that will get rented for 3 days on the weekend, and then it may get rented for a whole week at some point of the year. And kind of what goes and comes with that is, depending on your area and where your rental is there's peak seasons and there's low seasons. So if you own a cabin in the mountains and in the summertime people want to go up there, and in the wintertime people might want to go up there too because it's nice, but you're going to have some peaks. Peaks and valleys of when your busy seasons are. So, definitely I'm referring to daily rentals where they're giving you probably a nightly rate or a weekly rate. Not necessarily something that's going to give you a monthly 12-month lease situation or anything like that. So long-term rental versus short-term rental is how long the tenant is actually staying there. And if we wouldn't even call them tenants in short-term rentals, we'd call them customers because they're the ones that are paying them. So there's different verbiage too. So tenants versus customers is a big one too. So anyway, so what are the challenges? And I guess we'll start with the short term first. The advantages of it. And I'll kind of go through. We got a little outline to follow here. We've kind of broken this down a little bit. Is in the first one, and the reason why people say, "Oh, I want to do a short term rental," the very number one reason that they say that, I can make so much money. Sure, you can. It's a hell of a lot of work, though. Okay, and there's a lot of challenges that go with it, and people don't understand that. So the amount of turnover, if I have, the difference between, in this situation, is people think higher return on investment. That's correct. You are right. There is also the workload involved on a Airbnb situation is every 2 or 3 days, you have somebody that's moving, it's going out of there. If you have an issue that goes bad in that house, and you don't fix it within 12 hours, maybe 5 hours, you're going to have a customer that's pissed. And if you get bad reviews, from what I understand, if you get bad reviews on a VRBO or something along those lines, or an Airbnb, you're screwed. End of story. So you better make sure that, so you better make sure that that property is in tip-top shape, in order, and you better make sure that you have contractors on call immediately. And when I say immediately, it's not, hey, I'll get to it tomorrow. It's, no, get your ass out there right now and get it done. Because I got a customer who's paying me $450 a night to stay in my 2-bedroom beach condo, and that shit ain't flying. Okay? So there's a different, if you have a 12-month lease on somebody, it's like, hey, it's the weekend. I'm not sure I can get somebody out there till Monday. I know it sucks, but we'll get it taken care of. You can get away with that. Okay? Yeah. Do we preferably try not to? No, of course. If we can get it done, we'll get it done. But it's not the end of the world because they're not paying me $450. They're not paying me hotel rates. Okay? They're paying me, no, they're not paying me. They're paying the property owner, but they might be paying Ryan. Who knows? So they're not paying hotel rates. That's the whole point. And oftentimes, sometimes higher than hotel rates, sometimes lower. Just depends on the situation. But
so to that, your higher return on investment. Essentially, we're going to say you can get $2,000 a month for a property that's near the beach. Well, maybe you can rent that for $200 a night. If you could just fill that for 20 nights a month, that's $4,000. First, the $2,000 you would have got on a 12-month rental. So that's where your higher rate of return, you can make. You don't even need to fill it all 30 days of that month, and you could make potentially double what you would have just rented it out for to a long-term tenant.
Absolutely. And when we start breaking down costs and that, you talk about sending a cleaner every single time. So you have to send a cleaner, let's say throughout those 20 days that you rented it out, we're going to eat in. This is where we're going to eat into the cost, though. So if you send a cleaner out, okay, so we have a $4,000. We rented it for 20 days out of 30, right? Okay, and we all.
But you figure that's, and I just for rough numbers, I wouldn't say that's 10 rentals or whatever. That's probably,
I'd say 5.
4 or 5.
Yeah,
short ones.
So let's talk on that. So every time I got to send a cleaner out there, how much is it going to cost me? Because I know the answer to it.
I would say something like that on a small $100, $150, maybe.
Yeah, probably $200. Because you're paying the only people that do cleaning like that don't schedule things far out. Because you're not scheduling them far out because your schedule. And it's like, hey, I need it on Wednesday, I need it on Friday, I need it on Tuesday, and I need it on the following Monday. Okay, so you may not always have it scheduled that quickly because somebody could book late. Okay, so my
argument to that is for the most part, your Airbnb rentals are something like that are going to have a cleaning fee built into it, and on top of it, or an extra fee built into it, and on top of it, it's hotel condition when you show up. Generally, it's clean. Most of the time, they're going to be returned in a somewhat clean condition, so they're not necessarily going through doing a full deep clean every time. It may just be 2 hours or whatever.
Yeah. So, and again, but that's probably going to cost you about $200 a pop. So there's $1,000. Let's say there's $1,000. You have cleaning fees involved, obviously, as well. They get charged back to the person that rents it. Sometimes I think it's like $75 sometimes. I think the couple of the ones that I've booked, it's like $75 or $50. And it's not going to cover all of that.
They can adjust them to kind of what they want, depending on the size of the property, I think.
Next situation we go into, here's 2 different options. Your average property manager to manage your vacation rental will charge about 25%. So quick numbers tell us if we make $4,000, you're making $1,000, right? You're getting $1,000 taken away. So now quickly, and cleaning fees aside, this is just rough numbers. There's another $1,000. So now we're right back into that $2,000. You're right there again. But not only that, how much extra work is involved on stuff like that to make sure. The other side of that is you'd have to talk about furnishing the property if something gets screwed up. You have to, if couches get old, beds get old, linens. That's the other thing about understand about cleaning is they're not going in and cleaning. They have to change the linens all the time. That's the biggest cost. So you have to change the sheets. They have to bring out new linens. They have to do this. They have to do that. It's not just going in there on a vacant property and cleaning it. That might cost $125, but it's going in there, stripping all the beds, changing the sheets out, cleaning everything, and make sure it's good to go. And you're paying for the sheets. Like I have a cleaner who I work with who does vacation rentals, and he's like, man, I have this. Most of the time we just use a basic linen strip them off, put them on there. But like this guy's got a $4,000 that probably makes. He's like it rents for like $480 a night or something like that. But he's got like Egyptian cotton sheets, and he's like we have to use Egyptian cotton sheets on his house
for $480 a night.
Yeah, it's $500 a night. I get it, and it's like we have to use those, but now I have to go buy them himself because he's the one that supplies them, and he wanted it. But I have 4 sets that I have to change in and out, so it's an additional cost for him. So as opposed to using a regular standard 300 thread count sheet, whatever. I mean, I don't know what. I don't even know what's good. 500. I don't even know. I couldn't tell you. That's
your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, not my thing. I can sleep on this old dirty carpet in this freaking room, so it don't matter.
The kicker to all of this, which is also one of the points as far as an advantage here, aside from your rent or rate of return being a little bit higher, is you get it for personal use. So maybe you're going to deal with management, and that's again a lot of Airbnbs are self-managed, so that 25% is going to go right to the homeowner as opposed to a management company, because not many are doing that. So you save on that. You're going to have personal cleaning, but you get personal use out of it. So if you've got a spot in the mountains, if you've got a spot by the beach, wherever that house may be, if it's not rented out, well, then you get to go there and use it whenever you feel.
Personally, I would consider buying one myself because I would manage it myself. I know it's a lot of work, but I also know the contacts that I have to get everything done too. And I would obviously manage it myself. Now, if somebody were going to pay me to do it, I don't really think I want to have anything to do with it because it's just a totally different model from a property management standpoint. And people have approached me about it, and I just
from a business perspective, you'd have to change everything that you do in an operational sense to accommodate something like that. And to take on one or two would be you going backwards. You'd have to target that specifically.
No, for sure. Now you have to be a vacation rental company is what you have to be. Yeah. And they existed, by the way. Vacation rental companies have been around for years. They've just managed it differently without Airbnb and VRBO. Now those vacation rental companies, all they do is they just go put them up on VRBO, and they still have the same rentals and they still have the same clients. They just put them up on VRBO and Airbnb and run them through there, and it's easier for them to get clients or to get customers to come in. That's all they do. So if you already have a vacation rental company in place, sure, go ahead and do it. But I mean, all they're going to do is put it on Airbnb and VRBO. That's what they're going to do. Yeah. So it's the same thing.
Now, the good ones, I will tell you, are going to give you suggestions on what to put in the units, where as far as like, hey, throw a pool table or a foosball table, something like that to make it more attractive. Hey, swap out this couch for a sleeper sofa or a futon, something like that to up maximize the amount of occupancy you can have in there.
Yep, you can definitely maximize your rent, I guess, in that situation. You can also... what they're going to know, too, is they're going to know the ins and outs of the market, too. So, hey, in Florida, it's pretty simple, obviously. Hey, from February to the end of April, you're slammed because it's spring break. It's a lot of people coming down. And all of a sudden you get to June, you need to adjust your rate accordingly based on the demand of the property. So that's obviously much different. I know a lot of Florida people that when we take our vacations, it's in the middle of the summer. We'll get a beach house and we'll go down the coast, but we don't do it in the middle of March because we're like, screw that, I ain't paying that. But we stay in Florida for vacation, by the way, in case a lot of people those knows. They're like, hey, where'd you guys go for vacation? We stayed in Florida.
A couple hours down the road?
Yeah, just went and got
go to the other side of the state.
Yeah, just whatever. Yeah, like I change it up. Like we went over to the Gulf side. Whatever. Yeah. So actually, I like to go to the mountains and go to big cities, but I do go other places. But I do like to vacation in Florida as well. That's why I moved here, because I like it. So. Then let's kick that back in. So we've obviously talked about the challenges. The biggest thing, obviously, the high turnover. Let's say all of a sudden you get some bad reviews, things like that. Your property's not renting, and now all of a sudden you thought you had it rented for 20 days. Now all of a sudden it's 15, and every given month it's so static. Every month, you don't know exactly. It's not guaranteed rent. It's not stable overall. I mean, it can be for sure. Because if you have a great property in a great location and it's always rented, fantastic. Is that the case for everybody? No, that's not the case. So there are people that struggle doing this as well. One major thing we got to hit on too, and I'm going to use Atlantic Beach, Florida as an example of this, is there are places such as San Francisco is a big one. They are struggling to try to get Airbnbs out of their city for a reason. So obviously the hotel is paying a major amount of money to have their business where it's at, and they're losing out on business because of Airbnbs and VRBOs. So they're very upset with the local. And by the way, people that own hotels, they have more money than you as an investor, mostly. Okay.
Generally.
They also know people on the city council. They know mayors. They know this, that, and the other. They are very powerful people because they have a lot of money. If you think you're going to win that battle and sneak underneath the table, and even if it's illegal in, let's say, Atlantic Beach, Florida, still a lot of money out there. No, Atlantic Beach City Council said absolutely not. You cannot do a VRBO. You cannot do short-term rentals. The shortest rental you can do is 90 days, correct?
Yes.
That's at least last we knew.
So, and this is so, I guess, for everybody from a perspective standpoint.
Explain what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so it's just, I guess it's more so knowing your market. So the beaches here in Jacksonville, everyone's going to refer to it as Jacksonville Beach. If you're looking at it on a map, it all kind of looks the same. It blends in. We've got technically 3 beaches: Jacksonville Beach, Neptune Beach, and Atlantic Beach. And 4 if you want to count Ponte Vedra is just south of Jacksonville. So, and those all span, I mean, you could probably touch all 4 of those within a few miles. So Atlantic Beach is the furthest north. And we'll call
that's only a 10-mile stretch, 8-mile stretch?
Not even. I think I want to say 8. It's like 3 miles approximately.
I mean, what's Ponte Vedra to Atlantic though? Yeah, 5.
Yeah, probably
6?
5 miles. Yeah.
Yeah, 5, 6, somewhere in there.
So so Atlantic Beach spans about 3 miles. You've got a 90-day. No, you can't rent for less than 90 days. That's it. If you go just south of that to Neptune Beach, which is only 20 blocks, maybe a mile.
Yeah, it's not barely a mile.
It's not very big. It's tucked right in between Atlantic and Jacksonville Beach. Their restriction is 30 days. So you can't rent for anything less than 30. Well, you go to Jacksonville Beach, and there's no restrictions.
There's no restrictions. So
you're open to do anything you want.
Yeah, where someone doesn't want to be, somebody else will take that business too. So there's always that aspect of it. So Jack's Beach.
But yeah, so with that said, if you're in the southern tip of Atlantic Beach to the northern tip of Jacksonville Beach, you're probably about a mile apart, and you've got 3 different restrictions as far as your Airbnb goes.
And the biggest difference in what I'll say,
something to consider when you're purchasing, if nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. And what I'll say is I look at the infrastructure, that is about the 4 nicest hotels are in Atlantic and Neptune right there. And I guarantee you that when that came down, the owners of those complexes said, this ain't happening. Because Ocean One is probably the nicest hotel in Atlantic Beach. And it's in between Atlantic and Neptune. It's like right on the line, so I think it's Atlantic. And there, I guarantee you, whoever the owner of Ocean One, because it's not a major chain, had something to do with that. And as he should, because he's got to protect his asset from that aspect. So again, this all
circles right back to research and research before you buy that investment property, because there's going to be nothing worse than saying, I'm getting a great deal on this Airbnb to find out that, shoot, I can't rent this thing for anything less than 3 months, and now you're 3
stuck. Months into the city of Neptune Beach sends you a letter they're asking for their hotel tax, and they're asking for everything else that you get on top of what you've already spent. And
so here's the kicker. As far as now, I don't know if this is nationwide or just in Florida, but I know in Florida, hotel tax is anything under 185 consecutive days, which basically equates out to 6 months. So if you rent a property for less than 6 months,
it's 6 months. Required 6 months and 29 days, or something ridiculous.
Yeah, so like you're required to pay hotel tax.
Correct. From a rental perspective, from what we do is people ask me, well, can I do like a 3-month lease? No, absolutely not. Anything for me is it's got to be over 7 months. So I don't care if it's 7 months in a day or whatever. And I strictly maintain a 12-month leases for the most time. Sometimes I'll do a 7-month if it's like an extension or something. But starting off, it's always a 12-month lease. So that being said, again, you want to avoid hotel tax completely because hotel tax is pretty much what pays for most of our infrastructure here in Florida. So they want their money. That's what fuels our state here from a tourism perspective.
So if you're running an Airbnb or any other short-term rental, 6% is what it is in Florida. make sure you're collecting that or saving it off of whatever your rental income is, as you know,
and
already.
You're
going to get pinched in the long run.
And like we talked about earlier, and we'll allude back to it real quick, is that VRBO and Airbnb have that built into their algorithm on their thing. So this is what you need to charge. You know, they let you know if you're going to do it. This is what the hotel tax is here locally. This is what you need to pay. Blah blah blah. You can pass that cost on to the buyer or the customer,
correct,
which is what most of them do. So you are covered for that, but it just increases the rate of your.
As the homeowner, you're responsible for paying.
You're responsible for paying it. Just because you charge the customer doesn't mean that you necessarily paid that back to the state of Florida. So there's some interesting things there. So, so we talked about the disadvantages of the short-term stuff. Obviously, some things in there. We'll skip over to long-term here, and we're kind of going to have the same discussion a little bit because we obviously, talked about it. But so the biggest thing, and I actually alluded to it very quickly, is I referred to the short-term stuff as being static, and it's not always predictable. And the market changes quickly, and the market changes fast, and it goes up and down. And there'll be 1 month where you rent it for 25 days, and 1 month where you rent it for 10. So the advantage of having a long-term rental, obviously, is the fact that you're strictly signing 12-month leases typically. So once you're locked in for that long period of time, that's what you're getting every month, assuming an eviction or something like that.
It's definitely a bit more predictable.
For sure. It's definitely more stable, and that's one of the biggest advantages. From a long-term perspective, we're going to go back to restrictions here as well. Not a lot of restrictions on long-term rentals. You're never going to find a place that says, "Hey, you have a house, you can't do a 12-month lease in here. It's got to be 48." Well, 48's illegal in most states too. So, in Florida, actually, if you're over 12 months, you're legally supposed to have your lease agreement prepared by an attorney and signed off by an attorney. Does everybody do that? Absolutely not. I know for a fact that there are companies here in town that do leases for longer. Typically one that gets away with a lot of 2-year leases. I don't know their paperwork. I haven't looked at it. I don't care to, but I know they do it. I don't know what they do, but not going to ask questions. Don't care.
I don't know who they are.
Couldn't tell you. No idea. This is if anybody's watching the YouTube video, this is very snide remarks of a larger investment company here in town. Anyway, moving on. Also with long-term rentals, typically it's a smaller initial investment. Partly in basically what our outline's talking about is you're not furnishing the property too. You're not changing linens. You're not doing those things. So there's a little bit of cost savings from that aspect. The other
I
side
would hit
is
that on an investment side too. So if I'm going to look at a property and you're the seller and you're like, hey, look, here's my house that is not rented and it gets $1,500 a month, or here's one that you can do with Airbnb and it gets the same property, but now I'm showing you it makes $4,000 a month. Well, you're going to pay more for the rent roll that I show of $4,000 versus the one at $1,500.
Sure. Oh yeah. Well, so, and on top of that, what I want to go into is typically your Airbnb and stuff like that are in nicer areas that are drawing tourism. So the cost to acquire the property itself
in general
is much higher, to where you can have a decent investment property that's maybe, in a C-class neighborhood that probably gets pretty good return on your investment, and you're going to be okay. So the barrier to entry for somebody to own a vacation property 2 blocks from the ocean versus somebody to own an investment property on the west side of Jacksonville or, up by the airport where real estate land is not as expensive to get into, that's a much easier situation from an investment standpoint to get into. So that's kind of what I'm referring this, but you're not putting a vacation rental, and there's not a lot of vacation rentals in Mandarin. Where I live, it's mostly residential. People live here. People work here. That's what it is. There's a lot of vacation rentals towards Jack's Beach, obviously. There's zero in Atlantic Beach because they can't. So there's different sides of that too. So yeah, just the barrier to entry is different too. Your minimal ongoing expenses. So you have, just kind of kicking it back to, and I know I alluded to it, you're not doing the cleaning, you're not doing the change in linens, you're not doing, if you have, like I said earlier when we were talking about it, if your AC goes out and your customer's out there on the beach and it's in the middle of the summertime, they ain't going to be happy if they don't have AC for 2 nights. Okay, if it's a long-term rental and the AC goes out, you got some time. You got 24 to 48 hours, but you don't have that when you're, somebody's paying you $450 a night. So not going to go back too far into that, but definitely you have a little more time.
The other kicker there too is on a short-term rental versus a long-term, your utility coverage. So again, your short-term rental, no one's coming in and paying you an electric bill, a water bill, anything like that. On a long-term rental, that's all passed off to the tenant.
Yeah, that was another cost we actually didn't even talk about, by the way. When you're talking about somebody renting your house out for vacation, you're paying for the water and electric and all that, all those utilities for them, your Wi-Fi, everything. Because they expect to have that stuff in there. So that's another, let's say it on the high side, $400 or $500 a month in there. There's another cost. It's another cost you have to build into it. So everybody thinks, I can rent that thing for $5,000 a month. If I have it rented for 25 days, great, but here's $500 for cleaning. Here's $500 for utilities. Here's $1,000 for...
Those are some of those things when you're, again, going through your investment calculator. Make sure you're adding in some points you wouldn't necessarily be looking at from a single-family or multifamily rental long-term.
Yeah, and if you want to hire a property manager to do it, like looking at numbers here, like you better... You hire a property manager to do a short-term rental, your numbers are getting really, really crunched. I'm not sure that it's different than hiring a property manager to do a long-term rental. It's very, property manager to do a long-term rental, you're paying that guy, you're paying me, somewhere, and actually placing a tenant. You could pay me as little as $1,200 a year to manage everything for you, as long as I'm not, if it's the year 2 of a tenant and the tenant stayed. You're paying me $1,200 a year. No big deal.
So I'll touch on that a little bit just because I did actually look at a vacation rental up in the mountains, believe it or not, in North Carolina a couple years ago. So I never ended up purchasing it.
Wasn't Lake Lure, was it?
It was not. It was over in Beach Mountain, Banner Elk area.
I got a bachelor party golf trip and going up to Lake Lure, which is about 30 miles outside of Asheville. So if anybody's listening knows that area and knows where to go, I think it's in the middle of nowhere.
Asheville's nice. Asheville we stopped at on the way up to the Beach Mountain.
We're 30 miles on the west side or on the east side of Asheville, so we're away.
Okay, so this is probably an hour and a half from where you're going to be.
Okay,
northwest.
So 30, 45 minutes on the other side of Asheville.
So
I almost said Nashville.
That said,
Nashville. Huh.
I reached out to Asheville.
Nashville.
I reached out to a local property management company up there to essentially, because I'm, again, 7 hours away, 8 hours away by car, it's going to be much more difficult to manage. Well, they take, to your point, basically a % of the profit. That's Correct. How they function. But they're going to put it out not just on your Airbnb and VRBOs, but they've got other travel sites that they put it out on. And it's basically their full-time job where you place a tenant and you're going to follow up with issues, things like that. On a long-term rental standpoint, you're not out every day promoting a property. They do that and push properties out all the time to try to attract as much, because guess what? The more they bring in from a rental standpoint, the more they make as well.
Sure.
So they use it as a business structure. And that was, again, some of the things that...
Turn your phone off, sir.
Speaking of a rental, that's actually a roofer calling me on a roof quote for a new rental.
Well, there you go.
So
fantastic.
Anyway, they basically cover everything from not only placing it, but to your point, they're going to do the maintenance, they're going to do all that, and that's all factored into their cost.
Sure.
So you're breaking it down on a larger scale where...
Are they paying for the cost of the maintenance, or are they just
number.
handling the scheduling? Are they paying for the cost of the maintenance, or are they just handling the scheduling?
They just like, you're going to bring in, the rent, and you're going to deduct out your management fee, any maintenance, stuff like that. Yeah, they take everything in. They hold, a kitty of X amount of dollars, and everything is paid out from there.
Sure. Okay.
So, and that's kind of how you would compare it apples to apple, is they're going to make a prediction based upon what they have in the market right now. And this one specifically, they evaluated the property. They looked at photos. They made suggestions of, hey, put this here, put that there. And then they said, hey, on, average, you're looking to get X amount after our fees, after yada, 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 yada. And they broke it down. And then you basically take that number and compare it to a purchase price and say, looks like it'd be good or not. Now, there's going to be fluctuation. But for the most part, people that are specializing in that type of investment, are going to be able to break that down for you, because there's just so many miscellaneous fees included that most people, or even myself investing in single families, are not aware of on a vacation rental standpoint.
Yep, totally understand. So, and back to basically, and that's one of the advantages, I guess, or having somebody like that who's familiar with vacation rentals, being able to break all those numbers down for you is definitely helpful.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you want somebody to manage single family stuff, you contact someone like myself who does that as well, and they're going to give you the same kind of numbers for what they do. So that's exactly what you need to do. So other disadvantages of long-term rentals, you're going to have issues you can have issues like this on short-term rentals, albeit not very often. Somebody's supposed to check out and they don't check out. Well, you just charge them another night, right? On a short-term, you don't charge them another night. They destroy the place. Okay, yeah. Great. I got your credit card. Going to charge you X amount of money. Okay. Did you buy the insurance? Whatever, yada, yada, yada. There's all sorts of different ways to go about that. But you have, in the long term, obviously, you have bad tenants that destroy the property. They don't pay their rent. You got to go through an attorney to get them out of the property. They have rights because they signed the lease, blah, 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 blah. Okay. We have bad tenants. I don't care. I've done property management for almost 8 years now. You will have bad tenants. I don't care, no matter what. Almost inevitably, there will be a time where you'll have a bad tenant on a single family house. I don't care if you say, hey, well, I even called their job. I called, we did employment, we did credit, we did, everything we can think of. We did prior landlord references, blah, 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 blah. People's lives change. They pick up a drug habit. They get fired from their job and pick up a drug habit because they're depressed. Okay? People's lives change. So their circumstances change. They may be I had a situation where I had a great tenant. I'm going to save this bigger story for maybe our Friday BS show because it's a perfect BS show, or perfect BS story. Just kind of the bullshit that we deal with on a regular basis, which is, by the way, that's like a sneak peek to our new thing. So Friday mornings, we're going to do a short BS show. So we're going to talk about a story that happened to us either recently, maybe in the past, and we're going to talk about almost the struggles of being in real estate. So not everything is all bright and sunny all the time, right? We're going to talk to you about kind of the bullshit that we have to deal with at times. So join us on Friday mornings for that. So
we should try to keep it just to the week of, and I'm sure there's going to be something.
Yeah,
there's probably we could do it daily if we wanted to. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I could really come up with some stories almost on the reg, but anyway, so very quick story is basically this tenant was perfect for probably about 5 years. They were in the property for 5 years, and moral of the story is he owned a body shop, blah blah blah. Long story. Everything on the surface looked great. 2 kids, had a nanny that took care of the place. This is a $1,800 rental property. So in our market, that's a decent 4-bedroom, 2,500 square foot on the north side of Jacksonville, up off Ocean Way area. And long story short, ended up picking up a drug problem, was either selling drugs, hid it from me really, really well, hid it from everybody in the house, hid it from obviously everybody, but stopped paying rent one day. It was on the news. His body shop was closed down, and guy disappears. Gone. He left pretty much everything in the house. They were on the run. Found 2 loaded handguns, heroin, all other sorts of shit. Shit that I've never even seen before. And I've been in the house multiple times. Like, to think that, and we found like 2 loaded handguns. Like, I've been in the house that many times. Kind of freaked me out a little bit, not going to lie. But again, on the surface, he looked great. So there's what it is. So people do change. You will have bad tenants no matter what the screening process you do. It's very hard. The other side is if you have a C-class or a D-class property. You have some D-class properties that are pretty crappy and they're in war zones. You're going to have bad tenants to deal with. End of story. Bottom line, that's inevitable. You have properties in our area that are in certain zip codes. You're going to deal with crap. You're going to deal with evictions. You're going to deal with the house getting the shit beat out of it. You're going to deal with all that. So understand where you buy, what you buy, and having a professional in that market from a vacation rental standpoint or a long-term rental standpoint is going to help you. Those people are what to do it every day, because as a property manager, I don't want to deal with evictions. I don't want to deal with bad tenants. I don't want to deal with beat-up properties, because then you get mad at me. Nope. The tenants are the one that did it, not me. Okay? I may have placed them, but they were the best I had. They were the best available. Bottom line. So, moving on. That was a rant, by the way. It's basically what that had turned up to be. Yeah.
You
so I
just fell
apologize.
down that rabbit hole.
I did. The rabbit hole happens once.
Throw a rope at you and
yeah. The rabbit hole happens
bring
once
you
an
back.
episode. I'm aware.
But
so
that's probably a good wrap up. I would say. I mean, essentially, it comes down to your research ahead of time. So each rental, whether it's short term or long term, is going to have its advantages and disadvantages. You know, it all comes down to doing your research on the front end, knowing what you're getting into, and making the decision that's right for you and your wallet at the time.
Always. Where can they find you at, man? Where can they find us at? That's right.
NOBSRealEstatePodcast.com. We're there. As of last week. I think we had it down the last episode was the first kickoff there.
We did.
So
all of our information is on the website. Find us there. Check us out on YouTube.
Slowly adding content. I don't know if I'm going to try to put a section on there for, I guess, just information we can give out. For the time being, if you shoot Matt or I an email, we'll send over the real estate investment calculator that we use. It's an Excel sheet, break down some numbers. So send either one of us an email. Again, you can connect with both of us there on NOBSRealEstatePodcast.com. And again, we'll get that over to you.
You never got the outro to me, did you?
Yeah, you got the outro. We did it last week.
Nah, not the new one.
It's there. It's in the Google Docs.
It is there. Actually, I have it. Yes, it is. Got it. We're going to try it for the first time. Let's roll it. See you guys.
Here we go. See ya. Thanks for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, there's a few things I'd like you to do. Subscribe, leave a review, and head over to NOBSRealEstatePodcast.com where you can connect with Matt and I on all of the platforms we're on. Also, if you could do us a favor, leave a message letting us know what you enjoyed about the episode and what you'd like to hear about going forward.